we go. All right, 3i Atlas, new information to share with you. Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Bear Leak Project. I hope your day is going fantastic. We have David Sereda with us again. Check out the website, davidsereda.co, for excellent frequency generators that put together different harmonizing frequencies. Absolutely incredible. But we're going to get into this. So did you know that Mars started making its closest approach? I'm sorry, 3i Atlas started making its closest approach to Mars about October 1st. And that's when everything got shut down. They shut down the HiRISE satellite system. We have no new images from there, as well as the Mars Rover picked up some real faint images. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to talk about the latest information today. David has it put together for us. And David, it is great to see you. How's it going out there in British Columbia?
Well, good. I've been doing a lot of firewood collecting, running chainsaws, which is, you know, I got to do my weights to get my arm strong to hold these big saws. And
Nice.
I meditate every single day, which I've done my whole life. And, you know, with the aging process and doing frequency work, very tuned frequency work, I do a deep breathing meditation every morning, every 2 months for 30 days. I do like a deep breath work for about 45 minutes on myself. And so you start to really feel your spirit extending beyond the body, and your mind starts to go into these cosmic dimensions. And so it's really fun for me, the aging process, to really feel frequency and mind space and how mind connects. I mean, I actually used to meditate with this Buddhist monk in Los Angeles, this Japanese monk. We called him Sensei. And he said, there is no universe outside this mind. This mind is interlinked with the universe. So when we talk about, you know, outer space, planets, the cosmos, I mean, we're talking about our own potential locations of where we'll go to next. I mean, where to next? Where do we go after we leave these bodies? You start really thinking about things like this. I mean, you start getting into the cosmic, you know, like a Pythagoras. And I've also, in the last couple of weeks, spent hours with Richard Hoagland, the legendary Richard Hoagland, who to me is one of my greatest teachers. And he is, to me, like a living Pythagoras, and an enormously brilliant mind. I mean, to open your mind up to the possibilities is to say, we don't know for sure until you can really get your hands on it. I mean, today's science requires a burden of proof that is so severe. Even if I compare the scientific, method for the burden of proof, I mean, you practically need a hammer and a nail to prove to a scientist that 3i Atlas is at least intelligent, because they won't look at the religious correlations that I presented. And even though I presented the timing of the three, you're going to call them comets, you can call them whatever you want, of Oumuamua, when it came its closest to the sun, which is its perihelion, to 21 Borisov, its perihelion, to 3i Atlas's perihelion, which is October the 29th to 30th. I mean, some data is saying the 30th now. And again, that correlates to the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad. The closest approach to Mars was Yom Kippur. And so when you look at data like that, a scientist will throw all that out. But I look at all data, because all data is data, and you catalog it, and you're looking at an object that's so incredibly distant from Earth. And today's cameras are so good. I mean, they're getting so good that we can start to really resolve even very distant objects. But to me, the math is the best resolution. It's better than the cameras, but the cameras are also very good. So curiously, speaking about imagery, why did we lose? This is the Mars HiRISE camera. I'm going to share a screen here. Let me know. Oh, Rex, you're muted.
Real quick, before you do that, I apologize. I just need to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor. So Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here with us. And David, would you go ahead and just put your mic on mute for 30 seconds for me, buddy? Thank you, brother. Much appreciated. So, ladies and gentlemen, I did want to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, and that's Noble Gold Investments. Gold broke the $4,000 an ounce barrier. We said this was going to happen. It happened even a little bit quicker than we expected. If you've been following Leak Project, I have been with Noble Gold Investments now for over 7 years, and gold and silver and platinum is smoking hot right now. And the money funders and the hedge fund managers are usurping gold by the tons. Like if you look at the big banks, literally big banks are usurping gold by the tons. Why are they still doing that with prices as high as they are? Because they probably see something that a lot of us don't. Now, there's obviously never any guarantees. So what do? Give Noble Gold Investments a call. Gold has gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere. Prices keep climbing. Every day more Americans are catching on to the power of gold. How do you actually take advantage of it, though? How do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Noble Gold specialists are trained to help investors like yourself go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next to knowing exactly what to do. Whether you're looking to roll over a 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars mailed directly to your house, Noble Gold makes that process simple, safe, and stress-free with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and US-based service from a team that's handled over $2.5 billion of precious metal transactions. Give Noble Gold Investments a call today, 1-877-646-5347. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com. Now, if you let them know Rex from Leak Project sent you and you convert and you qualify, they will gift you 11 ounces of solid silver right now, a 10-ounce American flag bar and a 1-ounce silver round at no additional cost. So give them a call and find out how to get that for free when you convert qualifying. And thank you, David, for letting me share today's sponsor promo. And let's rock and roll. I know you got some exciting news for us. Thank you very much. And now I'll have you unmute, please, fine sir.
Okay, now I'll go to share screen here.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated.
So
last time you were here, man, you were blowing people's minds, especially when we had that weird.
Well, we're going to go through that more because I have more data on that. So can you see what I just shared, or is it? I don't see it
yet. Yes, I can. Here we go.
There it is. So this is the Mars HiRISE website. Remember, this is the camera, the premier camera to have imaged 3I Atlas. And you can see that it froze on October 1st. And I check it every day. And that was the day, the first day of Yom Kippur, which is a Jewish holiday marking the Day of Atonement, which was marked by Moses receiving the second set of the 10 Commandments, but also when the God of the Bible was on the earth and radiantly communicating to Moses and his brother Aaron on Mount Sinai, where this whole event took place. So it's a real physical event that's documented. I understand how scientists are. Like, I don't think scientists are the gods of events and data. I think everyone is part of that process. Like if an individual pulls out a video camera, or an individual says they had a mystical experience of vision, or an individual says that they had an encounter with a UFO. I mean, if an individual says they had an encounter with a UFO, even science rejects that. And I think that's a mistake. You can't be prejudiced when you're looking at data. You got to collect all your data, put it in columns, and look at all of it holographically rather than linear, sequentially, logically. The way we're taught in school is linear, sequential logics, as opposed to holographics. Holographic awareness is I would build myself in a cage, a geometrical cage, with all these index points to experiential and collected data. And there's a lot of data that we could be collecting on 3I Atlas, which we're not. We're not collecting all the data. And I'll give you an example what that might look like, as opposed to just, so this is optical data. this is the best camera in the solar system because it's in the gigapixel ranges of a camera, where the cameras on Perseverance rover are megapixels, million pixels. And the way cameras work is it's not just how many pixels. Like my new iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is not even new anymore, is 48 million pixels, megapixels. But it's also how big the size of the sensor is. So you can a bigger sensor with even less megapixels can produce a better image. It's not just about the number of megapixels. And the new iPhone 17 is also 48 megapixels. But my Nikon is 48 megapixels, and it produces a way better image than an iPhone 15 or 17. So I'm just kind of giving you an example there, because this camera was supposed to start imaging 3i Atlas on the 1st of October. On the 1st of October to today, the 13th, today is the anniversary of the miracle of the sun at Fatima, October 13th, and it's also my brother Michael's birthday. And it's a very, very mystical day for me, because I believe in all data. So when you look at the event that happened on October 13th, 1917, the miracle of the sun, again, astronomers say all those 70,000 people were out of their mind. Like, so imagine 70,000 people, and each one's human eye is collecting more gigapixels than even this camera can collect. Your eye and your brain can collect more light and assemble more light evenly in low light situations and in bright light situations better than even this camera, which is the best camera. So why does it shut down for public access and remain shut down exactly the date that 3i Atlas arrives in its closest distance to Mars, which was apparently precisely the closest on the 3rd of October. Yom Kippur is the 1st to the 2nd of October, when I demonstrated this alignment. And this camera is frozen. And then it took days before the Perseverance rover and the ESO, the European Space Agency, ESA cameras, gave us the frames that are now going all over the internet, causing a controversy. Because again, most people out there, it's a controversy because most people out there don't understand cameras. I don't think Avi Loeb understands cameras properly. He's probably got somebody advising him. He's making a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to go over those. So I call conspiracy absolutely when we were promised worldwide access to the images of this interstellar visitor who was arriving with the best camera in the solar system. In fact, I haven't checked the camera on the Juno spacecraft on Jupiter that's going to rendezvous with 3i Atlas on the 16th of March of 2026, which is Islamic Night of Power, the date celebrated for the Archangel Gabriel communicating with the prophet. Again, another coincidence. That's data. You don't throw out data. You look at all data. So why is it? It's so obvious. What I'm saying is so incredibly obvious, because when you give NASA this much time to manipulate imagery and ruin the imagery and probably smudge it before we get to see it, means they're seeing something that is challenging them so much that they don't want you to see it. And the timing of the government shutdown cannot be considered a random coincidence to this, because the government shutdown starts right here. And it's not supposed to affect this camera. The government shutdown is not supposed to affect the camera, because these images are downloaded automatically. It's like robotics. Once you program, you send the program for the Mars HiRISE camera to take the images, it's all going to be done. And that would mean the day before the government shutdown, it was already in operation. It's already programmed to do its mission. And so I call enormous red flag here on this. And I would say they know what they're looking at is not a comet. It's just not. And if you look at all the data that Avi Loeb has provided us, in fact, the fact that he personally can't get access to these images, I think that says a real lot, because he was the first one as a scientist, a Harvard scientist. Not that Harvard makes him God, but that is a very prestigious university to be a scientist at. He's 1 year younger than I am, and he doesn't have the experience I have with cameras and optics. So let me show you now, because I'm going to stop share. I'm going to show you what cameras actually really do, and it's called the grayscale. So we look at grayscale camera, grayscale images, grayscale camera chart. I'm not getting what I want. Okay, this is grayscale. And when I show you this on the screen, you're going to immediately recognize what grayscale chart looks like. Here we go. So go back to StreamYard. This is going to really prepare you to understand the images that we do have access to. So this is grayscale. Okay. Grayscale is the latitude and sensitivity. When you zoom in on pixels in these images, and you go from one here, which is white, all the way through these different gradients of gray, when millions of pixels are collecting light, they will assemble the image based on these tiny little dots of pixels that will assemble themselves somewhere in the grayscale. The latitude from extreme bright to dark is difficult for digital cameras. Are not as good as old film in its ability to express the total grayscale range in a single image. I've seen how poor digital cameras are. They perform really well in really soft, even light, but when you get into space, outer space, the light is very extreme. One, because there's no atmosphere on 3i Atlas. One, because there's almost no atmosphere on Mars and the moon. You have extremely weak atmospheres there. The light from the sun is so, if it hits an object, it's so bright that the aperture and the shutter speed shuts themselves down, and it has to pick an average between extreme black and extreme brightness. And it's not very good at, if it picks where it's going to average, if it's in automatic mode, then it's probably going to overexpose the highlights. They're going to be too bright for what you're really looking at. And it's probably going to overly darken the black areas. And that's why when you take a digital image into like something like Photoshop, which we're doing, I can adjust brightness, darkness to try to make up for that, because the data is in the pixels. It's all in the pixels. So by adjusting contrast and brightness, darkness, you're not actually manipulating the image. You're just kind of like opening and closing your eyes a bit, right? The pupils in your eye work exactly the same way. In bright light, your pupils, the aperture closes down to let in less light. But the human brain is better than any camera on Earth. It's still way better than any camera in existence. Also, we have stereo lenses, and most cameras could actually improve themselves if they took stereo images and brought them together. But they're really monoculars is what they really are. And a pair of binoculars, is better than a monocular, which is a single lens. So this grayscale is so important when you're going to be looking at these images and understanding it. So now when I go into the story. Let me go to Loeb's actual page when he posted the image. He's doing two things right now. And these two things are probably going over almost everybody's heads. So this is the first one. So let me go to his blog so you can see that I'm on Avi Loeb's blog, and share screen, window, Avi Loeb's Medium blog. And here we go. So did that come up? There we go. So let's go to the article where he posted the ExoMars image, which is a stacked image. And I'm going to explain to you why you cannot stack this image from all of the photographs, which are converted into a GIF video, which I downloaded it and has over 400 frames. So again, knowing the gray scale, if I look at this image, and I'm going to bring his image in, I'm going to screen grab this and bring it into Photoshop right now and kind of explain to you. So when you see these streaking objects, it's tracking the motion of 3I Atlas, and because 3I Atlas is going 130,000 miles an hour, in the time of the shutter speed, the stars in the background streak, right? So that's why you're seeing that. So now let me get rid of this page, and I'll show you, because of this image, he stacked the images. Now you cannot stack images on a body that we know is rotating. 3I Atlas is rotating. It's not rotating very fast. It has a recorded orbital axial rotation of 969 minutes, which is the age of the prophet Methuselah, which is the message, right? So that's one of my messages that I decoded. But if I take this geometric crystal, this is a great example, and it's highly lit in space against an apparent black background with stars, and you see my light. If it moves just a tiny bit, you see how that reflection on the light in the center of my crystal, it moves. You see how that reflection is moving? It only has to move a tiny, tiny bit, depending on how many geometries and structures 3I Atlas is made out of, for those little light changes to glint and produce. Remember, see how bright the light is coming from my webcam light on the surface of this crystal. The camera will dial itself down in automatic mode and make the surrounding not as bright areas really dark or black. And that's what is happening with these images. So I'm going to go into my Photoshop, and I'm going to show you his image. Okay. And now you have a better understanding of how these cameras are working. You're going to see there's a lot of data there. There's a lot of data there. There's my Photoshop. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I'm going to bring this image. This is his image that is stacked. And I'm going to show you a non-stacked, go back to the non-stacked versus the stacked.
Can you zoom that in a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to do it right now. View, fit on screen, and then we're going to keep zooming in and keep zooming in. And when you see the squares, we're starting to get into pixels, but it's not really like you think. Remember, these pixels will be somewhere in our grayscale. And remember, 3I Atlas has its own light, which makes this even more complex. It makes it more complex because you see all these soft structures back here surrounding the nucleus. It's probably not reflected light so much on 3I Atlas as its own light, but its own light is reflecting off these geometries that extend actually way out here. It has no cometary tail, but because he stacked these images, let me show you what that would look like. And I have that here somewhere. I just got to go to, these are the video frames. This is what it would start to look like. So if we took our initial image here, so let me take this and view fit on screen, and I come you see this image here, which we looked at last week, right? Oh my God. I'm trying to move this guy. Deselect. I'm trying to move it. Anyway, this image here.
That is weird.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know what it's doing here. Oh, there we go. So we've never seen anything like this. First of all, this is an actual frame, and it's, remember, understanding grayscale. This image gets really challenging to look at because you see what appears to be foggy, right, in these pixels. That's your grayscale at work. That means there's something here. But this image is so far away at 0.95 astronomical units. And I've checked this with Richard Hoagland, who was really one of my greatest mentors. And there's no question we should not be seeing geometry on an image that far away. So if I was on Mars, if I was in space looking back at Mars at 0.195 astronomical units, I should be seeing shape and form, but I shouldn't be seeing geometry this refined. No, I shouldn't, unless 3I Atlas is what I would call a megastructure. And let me give you an example, because I used AI to create a megastructure. And when I say megastructure, I mean something super. Hang on a second. I'm going to have to. I don't know why it's not letting me open this. Just let me try and. Here it is. It's letting me open it. I'm just giving my computer screen a minute to load this. Okay, so here's my megastructure that is kind of like this. And by megastructure, this structure could be holographic, because according to Hoagland, you see what I'm looking at here?
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is a megastructure, which could be, again, in the core of 3I Atlas, you can have an actual megastructure with its own light source projector, projecting the geometries against the frozen ice crystals in the surrounding environment. And this is probably closer, not exactly, but it gives you an idea of what 3I Atlas probably is doing to create. Go back to my Photoshop now. What we're actually seeing in the data. And remember, we didn't get the Mars HiRISE images, which would be so much better. But what we have is actually pretty good. So when we go back to Photoshop, because I'm going to show you a bunch of other stuff, because Loeb seems to be responding to. Okay, so let's go back to this. And your mind has to really just look at the data. I love what Boyd Bushman at Lockheed Martin taught me. Follow the data, theory be damned. Don't develop a theory until you've looked at all your data. And this is only one frame. And then another frame, that's the stacked image. So the problem with stacking on a rotating geometry, because it's glinting in its inner light source and receiving reflective light on its surfaces from the sun, is you cannot stack images on something like that, because only the core. So let's say my square here, which, looking at all the data here, could extend into a rectangle off here in this way, because I have illuminated pixels on all of these bands, and these bands are essentially all rectangles, even though my center looks like a square. If I rotate this, and I rotate it, let me go. You're going to look at that image too, which is my friend Erica's image. Let's see. Then if I rotate this and I rotate it, it's going to turn into a snowball effect. And the snowball effect is what this is. This is what Loeb released. And this is, again, stacked. So we lost our outer bands in the stacking because there's over 400 images in the GIF. Then all of this would smear. And that's exactly what it looks like to me, right? We still have a rectangular core. That doesn't mean it's a solid rectangle at all. But overall, my pixels, it is a rectangle, but it could also be cylindrical. It's not very hard to determine what the structure of this is, but it's a little bit difficult because look at these foggy kind of rings here. Like this is like a U shape here. If you really train your eyes and you look at all this data out here, this could be mega structuring, but also they stack the images, and then by stacking them, the brightest pixels here where our geometry was here, like look at this image. This is another frame. So I'm going to go bit on screen and zoom in on this frame. You see, remember this frame and this frame has a different glint of geometry that does have a rectangle in its core with these long cylindrical kind of structures. Remember, this is really bright. So why is the rest of it dark? Because the camera's latitude, and this is where digital cameras really suck compared to film, is in its grayscale, it has to pick one or the other. If it overexposes, so I can take this image and go adjust brightness, contrast. I can adjust my brightness, right? And I'm going to lose my structure. But you notice how these other objects start appearing around it? This is what Erica Joannis discovered, and I'm going to go to her images in a minute. That's data in the pixels. And these are structures in and around 3i Atlas. Now, if I dial down, I come back to this, and I come all the way down, I'm left with this glint that was captured during the duration of 3i Atlas. Adjust my contrast and my brightness. You see, now that's structure. That's not our imagination. And when we brighten this, I'm lowering the contrast. And when I was, in the darkroom years ago, because I've got thousands of hours in darkroom and black and white photography, using so many different negative developers, and some of my favorite were the low contrast, because the human eye is actually very low contrast, believe it or not. Which means if I look right now at shadows and black areas, I can see phenomenal detail with my eyes in the shadows. The digital camera has to pick either an average between the brightness and the darkness or one or the other. Can't get it all the way the human eye does. And that's why doing this adjusting, all of this is data. So I'm going to go to Erica Joannis in Connecticut, who sent me this, and she noticed all these other structures are in a straight line, which means these are not stars in the background, people. These are not stars in the background. Are you seeing this, Rex? And this image up here, which shows up like a square with two glinting hot spots, and this object only showed up in one frame here streaking by. Somebody could say, well, that's the moon Phobos going by. No, you have to look at the focal length of this camera, which is actually normally equivalent to around what the human eye sees. It can magnify only up to 175 millimeters, which is not very much, actually. But when I look at the full frame that this was taken from, it doesn't look like that. So what are all these objects in a straight line around Atlas that were captured on the CCD camera? This is incredible. So that means we've got a problem. And with that problem, we're going to go back to Avi Loeb. Go back to Loeb's page, and you're going to see he's actually responded to this, because I showed something like this and put it on my Facebook. Here. Okay, so we're on Loeb's page, and he literally, will Atlas break up? You see, this is the article. And what he says here, on October 29th, 2025, the interstellar object 3I Atlas will reach perihelion, closest distance to the sun, 203 million kilometers from the sun. Remember, that's much further than we are from the sun, because we're one astronomical unit, which is like 93 million miles. So this is further. So far, no small objects were clearly associated with 3I Atlas and astronomical data sets. The latest images released by ESA's ExoMars, which is what we've been looking at, show faint features around 3I Atlas that are likely noise artifacts. This is hilarious. Utterly hilarious. What does he mean, artifacts? Do we produce cameras that produce snowy artifacts traveling in a straight line along with 3I Atlas? This is where I'm giving you an example. This guy has no understanding at all of what a camera is doing. It's collecting data. If we took pictures with digital cameras that are producing that many artifacts, we wouldn't be using them at all, and certainly not in space. They don't do this. So this tells me he is, again, I'm on Medium. I'm posting responses to his arguments, because he's missing so much data. Because one, he's prejudiced against religious data, which again, religious data points to the old temple system, and the old temples marked the orbits of the moon and certain star systems. For example, the star Sirius was used in ancient times. They've now found in Göbekli Tepe at Turkey that, and that's Andrew Collins' work. I just want to, quote him, that he demonstrated, Andrew Collins, that Göbekli Tepe was tracking the star Sirius. And again, you can pick any star, especially ones that are not near the pole stars, the south and the north pole stars, and you can pick a date, like the star Vega was straight above the house when my daughter Astaria was born on September 11th, 2015. And the next year, at exactly that date, that star will go all the way around and it'll come back to the same place. So that's what the temples did. Even Solomon's temple in Jerusalem was a temple to track the heavens above. So to say that those ancient temples and those religious dates, which we call holidays today, are actually markers to astronomical events. So for Loeb to say this is actually outrageous. The faint features around 3 are noise artifacts. I mean, he's not a photographer. He has no experience with cameras. And because he's a scientist, he just diffused the camera isn't the artifact creator. The object can be called artifacts. That's more likely that somebody just said that. So all those, now let's say our noise or our artifacts were random, but they're not. Because let's go back to Erica's discovery. It's funny, I didn't think of this, but she got this new iPhone 17 and was taking images into it and said, David, look, I mean, she's a friend of mine, and she's had quite amazing experiences in her life. Okay, let's come back to this because this is important. This interests me more, the fact that it's in a straight line. So what Loeb is now saying in that paper is the 3i Atlas might be breaking up because he knows these are there. But why would it be breaking up? It's not very close to the sun. And when you get out at Mars, the temperature on the surface of Mars is incredibly cold. It's like minus 70 degrees. There's no reason to think that Atlas is heating. We know it has its own light. We know it's made of nickel. Nickel's not going to melt in minus 70 degree, ranged, radius distance from the sun.
That's a good point.
What is he saying? And because he's Avi Loeb and he can go on Fox News and he can talk to Congressman, Paulina Luna and tell her this BS, then she can just say, ignore it. Ignore it. Ignore it. It's no big deal. It's just going to go floating on by. The only thing these could be is, going back to Loeb's original hypothesis, is they're subcraft that were released from the main megastructure. And they're going to be dropping themselves off at Mars. But even more importantly, the bullseye, because next we're going to go back into the bullseye of 3i Atlas. So at this point, do you have any comments or questions, Rex? I mean,
somebody just made a comment that would be funny if we finally get a clear image of it and it says SpaceX on it. that would be funny, man. But in all, okay, so just so many weird anomalies. First of all, if the only thing that I can think of, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a minute.
Yeah, play devil's advocate. That's what you got to do in science.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this image from the ESO, and it looks like it's got these very intricate structures. It almost looks like a X-wing or something like that, the way that it's moving. And I heard it takes about 15.9 or 16.9 minutes to do a full rotation or something.
No, 16.16 hours.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
so
remember, look at my crystal and look at the light. It only has to move a millimeter and these glints just flash by.
True.
So that rotation axis that was recorded was 16.16 hours.
Okay. So when I'm looking at that, the only thing that if it wasn't structure, what would, okay, so let's say it is a comet, it's floating through space and it's rotating like this, and then they came out with another article recently that said it's shooting, like water is coming out of it like a fire hose. It's emitting a ton of water. It's releasing a ton of water. So then, as you said, other reports come out and say that they're finding nickel and enormous amounts of nickel, and the fact that it's just nickel or something along those lines makes it more suspicious of just being some type of interstellar comet. So if it is made up of mainly nickel, this is where I'm going, folks. Sorry it's taking me so long to get here, but
no, it's good.
If this thing is moving, if this thing has been in space for billions of years, like they're telling us, traveling through space billions of years, and now the potential that it could break up when it gets close to the sun with the compositions that they're telling us it is.
It's not going to get close to the sun. No.
I find that, okay. So I find that very weird. And how come we hear about these comets that have been traveling for billions of years and all of a sudden they get close to the sun and they break up and they're no more? Wouldn't that have happened like a billion years ago?
No, those are sun-diving comets. Okay. We see those on the NASA SDO Solar Dynamic Observatory. Periodically, you'll see a small sun-diving comet, and yes, they disintegrate. So,
but when you hear that they've been in space for billions of years, and then all of a sudden wouldn't that have happened to them before?
It would have, exactly, Rex. It wouldn't have made it here. So what I did is I did a calculation yesterday. The orbit of Nibiru shows up in the algorithm of the rotational axis period. So I'm gonna demonstrate that, because then I want to know when it left Nibiru's orbit, which is approximately 3,600 years according to Sitchin. So let me show you this.
So you think this thing could be connected to Nibiru?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh yeah. Because so look at my calculator. So all I did in my algorithm, its actual rotational period, if I take 16.16 hours, and that's plus or minus 0.05, because they're never 100% accuracy. So I have a little bit of tolerance there. And I convert that to minutes. It's the age of Methuselah, 969 years, 0.6. Now, because I know it communicates in the golden ratio, because the three comets, Oumuamua, 21 Borisov, and 3I Atlas, are all extraterrestrial. They're not from the Oort cloud. They're from way out there. They're all in 1 to the golden ratio squared, which means it's using the golden ratio, which is phenomenal in itself. That should have ended all arguments when I presented that to any mathematician, that these three visitors are in this perfect golden ratio harmony, which ordinary comets are not. That should have ended it right there. But I'm going to multiply this by the golden ratio, and I'm going to reach Nibiru's orbit. My algorithm is the golden ratio, 1 to 1.61803398887. I'm going to do this repeatedly. That's Saturn. I just passed Saturn's orbit. I'm going to keep going way out in outer space. That's gong. There it is. That's Nibiru's orbit in days. So, and to resolve that into years, I divided by 365.256, and I'm at 3,620 years. So I'm right within 99.99% accuracy on the orbit of Nibiru in my algorithm. And all I'm using is the math that 3I Atlas sent us. It is communicating. These physicists are blind, completely blind. They can't see stuff like this. So again, this is data. Why am I at Nibiru's orbit? So what I did next is I used mathematics in ChatGPT actually to tell me how far away from the sun, which is the perihelion date of 3I Atlas, which is October 2930, somewhere in there, because there's an exact moment where it's exactly perfectly aligned to the sun, and its distance in astronomical units to 3I Atlas. And I did this. And I want to know how long it took to get here. I sent this to Richard Hoagland the other day, so I gotta look at the email. And so surprisingly, I mean, I don't need to show people the math because they're not going to follow the math, but basically, it was 19.5 years ago it left Nibiru's orbit, which is the inverse of 591. 19.5, which is Richard Hoagland found and discovered the 19.5 degree angles all over the pyramids on Mars. So he's the one who discovered it. I discovered the 591 when my wife died, August the 9th, 2021. She calls out my name 591 days later, and I took 591 divided by the golden ratio, and I got the exact orbit of Earth. So she was 1 to the golden ratio to Earth, right? So the golden ratio is key here, because remember, Atlas is communicating with Oumuamua and 21 Borisov, and Atlas are all 1 to the golden ratio squared apart. You know, the top of the human head, when you look at the spiral of hair, and especially in a baby, that's all golden ratio spiraling. And they didn't in the Johns Hopkins study. Let me go into the golden ratio a bit before we go to the next level of this, because some people don't even actually know what the golden ratio really is. But the golden ratio, let me see if I can find it in my windows, is there it is. Journal of Cranio. It's coming up. It's going to come up here in a second. I don't see it. I just did share screen. Let's see. Sometimes it takes a second to pop up. Somehow it's not popping up here. Let me go.
No problem.
Well, this is really important because this study proved in testing the theory that the skull of various mammalia, including lions and tigers, believe it or not, are designed in the fashioning of the golden ratio. There it is. Here's the study. So maybe I have to have it up in my screen for it to pop up first. So I have it there now. And you got to see this because this is what it's all about. In fact, in this study, I just clicked on, there it is. There's the study. And this is so important. I mean, this is Johns Hopkins University. So what they did is they measured between these points in the back of the skull to the soft spot in the head so it's NBI, and these ratios were so close to the golden ratio. Again, you're never going to see 100%. And in this table here, I'll go full size on this table. The golden ratio appeared, I'm going to have to blow this way up. You see, the human head, NNI to BI, was 1 to 1.64 plus or minus 0.04. And the golden ratio perfection would be 1 to 1.618. So that's within like 98% of the golden ratio. And in lions, it was 1 to 1.74 plus or minus. Tigers, 1 to 1.77. The rhesus monkey, 1 to 1.86. Domestic dog, 1 to 1.91. These two numbers really interest me because the monkey and the dog, their ratio in their brains correspond to the ratio between Earth and the orbit of Mars. And the cottontail rabbit is 1 to 2.25. So the human skull brain complex was the closest of all the mammalia tested. In fact, they've tested way more mammalia than this. If you read this whole study, it's really fascinating. But it shows you that by human design, we have this golden ratio built within us. Also, if you measure from the tip of your fingers to your wrist to your elbow, mine is like 1 to 1.58, which is almost exactly twice pi, 1.314, 1 to 1.3, 3.14159. So we have this design built inside of us. And Leonardo da Vinci was one of the earlier artists who really studied the ratios and proportions in the human design. So where our brains are closer, which means our consciousness is really tuned to golden ratio. Just to say that Oumuamua, 21 Borisov, and 3R Atlas are 1 to the golden ratio squared in their perihelions, closest position to the sun, is extremely significant. It's extremely significant. Yeah, and somebody's mentioning Fibonacci's numbers, and Fibonacci's numbers are 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 18, 34. 21, 34. I mean, I'm just going off the top of my head. So when you take Fibonacci's numbers, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5. Slowly, the ratio between those numbers reaches golden ratio. So when I say that I take 3i Atlas as master number, if it's rotational axial period of 969.6, and I multiplied it by the golden ratio, and I got to Nibiru's orbit, and then I said, mathematically, I got Chat to do. Chat is really good at math, and you can check it over with it. How many astronomical units is the distance between Earth and an orbit? Because we've never found a planet at an orbit of 3,600 years. And then I calculated the speed of Atlas, but I didn't use the rounded off number of 130,000 miles an hour. I wanted its exact number, which is a shaving under that. So I did this really precise. And I came within, with a little bit of tolerance, that it was 19.5 years ago that it left the orbit of Nibiru, because we don't know the exact orbit of Nibiru. It's around 3,600 years, apparently a little further than that, if you read all of Sitchin's books. Why did it come within 99% of 19.5, which is the inverse of 591? And now its bullseye, and it's going to hit the bullseye next Monday. So let's go. I want to go to the bullseye. Any questions while I'm looking for this image, Rex? Just far away.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking through the comments as well. There's a lot of people in the chat that are fascinated with this, and they're talking about the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio. So looks like some people are keeping up with you on the math. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad I went over it a little bit this time, because some people don't understand. Like, we learned pi in school, 3.14159, to resolve a circle, the diameter times pi. But we don't learn, in fact, my daughter in school hasn't learned about phi. Phi is the golden ratio. So when we look at, this is where it gets even more stunning, because when we look at its bullseye, I mean, and I went over this with Richard Hoagland this week, and he really enlightened my mind. He said, David, you don't understand. At the distance that 3i Atlas traveled from the neighboring spiraling arm of the Milky Way galaxy, just at that distance. And like you said, Rex, the fact that it doesn't disintegrate in another sun and another, you know how many stars there are between us and the next arm over in the Milky Way galaxy? And its bullseye would be a number that my deceased wife gave me, because this turquoise orbit is your hypothetical orbit of a planet it takes 591 days to go around the sun, inside the orbit of Mars, is its bullseye. And for it to have known that and hit that target between the 20th and 23rd or 24th of October, which is next week, starting, I mean, I'd be really curious from October 9th going forward to about the 25th, what's it going to do if it, like, you have to understand the odds, the mathematical odds of its enormously long trajectory. We'll never see this thing again in this solar system if it keeps going, And the idea of understanding the hyperdimensional solar system model that I presented last time, that we have a solar system that actually has 9 more planets that were first witnessed by the poet Dante in his spiritual visions. So would a scientist consider remote viewing or spiritual visions data? No, they wouldn't. But the CIA funded remote viewers who were very successful at finding, downed and lost planes, etc. So this is my hyperdimensional model, consistent with what Dante saw in the Paradiso, who was floating out here in his consciousness, and his angelic tour guide, which is his deceased beloved Beatrice, is showing him that after they've ascended all the way from Earth to Venus to Mercury, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus and Neptune didn't exist in Dante's century, the 14th century. So he describes Uranus and Neptune perfectly, but yet nobody seems to notice that. I noticed that. And he's shown there are 9 more planets of the angels to reflect the 9 levels of the angels going back to the sun. And that 591 would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th level of that. And the fact that this is even happening, and that's the bullseye of 3i Atlas, tells me its message to humanity is, I'm heading for the bullseye number that leads to the golden ratio, because all I did is took 591 to the golden ratio to build this model, which we talked about last time, to this hyperdimensional model of the real solar system. And so that means a lot. That means we're at a breakthrough point, because we have UFOs that are jumping dimensions, and we don't know that what's on the other side of the mirror when they jump. And Richard Hoagland gave us the number 19.5 a couple of decades ago at least. And I give us the mirror opposite of that number, 591, and I built this model. I took the rotational axial period of 3i Atlas, and I built the same model, but my numbers were only slightly different in the in that model, I'm trying to find it because I have it here somewhere. And when I separated like two pieces of paper, the difference between the rotational periods in what I called the Methuselah model, and so I should go to that because that's on my Medium page. When I separated the distance in the numbers, I got Fibonacci sequence. Now, somebody in your audience has actually named the Fibonacci sequence. So I think a lot of people out there understand Fibonacci sequence. I think a lot of people do. So why did I get Fibonacci sequence when I separated both numbers? So here we go. There's my Medium page, and it's in this article. 3i Atlas sends Earth the age of Methuselah, the oldest man in the Bible, and who is the son of Enoch, actually. And so this is the model I got from starting with 969.6 divided by the golden ratio. I got 599.24 instead of 591. And I keep going, and I get all these orbits of all the planets. Saturn, the accuracy was the highest at 99.94%. Mercury was very high at 99.38%, and Earth was 98.62%. So why does that matter? Because when I separated the two models of all the orbits of the planets, each planet then became one of Fibonacci's numbers. See? 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, which is Jupiter, and I keep going and I keep going, and I'm like, I'm so blown away when I do this. I'm so blown away at the math that the two models correspond to each other. It's like, in the old days, video cameras shot interlaced frames. They were literally like this, like two frames interlaced. So basically, in the old days, you could take the video frames apart and look at this interlaced frame and this interlaced frame, and they literally looked like fingers, like this. So, which means there's a differential between the old video cameras that produced interlaced frames. So, frame number 1 is the Methuselah model. Frame number 2 is the 591 model. And when I put them together and I take them apart and I look at my differential numbers, they're all Fibonacci sequence assigned to each one of the planets, including my hyperdimensional angelic planets. Now, how that you cannot make this stuff up. It's impossible, the odds of making this stuff up. The fact that 3i Atlas, 21 Borisov, and Oumuamua 1 to the golden ratio squared at perihelion. Come on, you people, you gotta just see this. That this is the proof we're looking for, and these physicists can't see it because one thing interesting about physicists. Of course, I took physics. I worked for a legendary team of physicists on nuclear fusion and advanced detection of bombs and contraband and subatomic particles. I mean, I spent almost 2 decades with Maglich and the accompanying physicists that he worked for. They don't study the golden ratio. They don't. I can't even believe they don't. Because when you look at the orbits that subatomic particles make in these bubble chambers, they spiral like electrons in a bubble chamber. Like, I should pull up an image of this. Let me just show you. Electrons spiraling in a bubble chamber. Electrons spiral in bubble chamber. And these subatomic particle explosions. There you go. I mean, these are beautiful images. They're gorgeous. Like, look at these things. Okay, so let's go to share screen on this and say, this is the nature of reality. And the nature in the quantum level, we see this all the time. You see this? You see, I can literally tell you from my training, look at this one at the bottom. The Fibonacci freaking spiral right there, right? So to say that it's not important that these 3 supposed comets are 1 to the golden ratio squared when it's at the basis of the nature of reality. right, is to say that we have an intelligent behavioral message from 3i Atlas. Now, if I go to somebody saying, ask him about the WOW signal. Yeah, we covered the WOW signal last week. And the WOW signal last week, we noted, I'll have to go to, again, you can go to David Sereda at Medium and see my article on the WOW signal, which is the last article I published there. Let me just share screen. So what do I think 3i Atlas is? I'm going to get to that. All of the data. You see, this is the WOW signal occurred August 15th, 1977, which is a major, major religious date because it's on the solar calendar, which means that date doesn't change every single year. When the early church calculated the date of Mother Mary's ascension, which was when she was witnessed by all the apostles, and this is an extra biblical manuscript, ascending up into the sky just like Jesus was. So why that date? Okay, I mean, that's religious data. So some people say, oh, that's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. All of the, every time 3i Atlas crossed an orbit of a planet, it was a major religious day to all the religions of the world. Just a coincidence. And scientists won't talk about it. But again, when you go back to archaeoastronomy, and you can read this whole article, which is really it does get mathematical a bit in this article. You can see the evidence that our religious dates do correspond, right? They do correspond. There's the WOW signal. Are you doing this, Rex, or are you doing the clicking on the? I don't seem to have control of that. But the WOW signal. So let's go back to the WOW signal.
Yeah, that was me, David. That was
okay,
me.
yeah. So Avi Loeb again wrote an article that the direction in the sky, and you have to think of not just a two-dimensional flat point in a 360-degree circle. So the way it works is you have 360 degrees in a circle, but if I tilt the axis of that circle and I keep multiplying it by 360 degrees in this way, in all of your X, Y, and Z axis, you have so many coordinates. And the odds that he calculated that 3i Atlas came from the direction of the WOW signal, and the WOW signal itself was, yeah, that's the alignment that occurred on October 1st, which is when Yom Kippur began.
And when they shut the government down.
And they shut it down, and they shut down the Mars HiRISE camera, which still shows on the website today, freeze frame frozen October 1st, which means they're scrubbing the images and they're blown away by what they see. So you have to almost be an invisible observer when the government shuts down October 1st and you have that alignment of 3i Atlas to Mars and Mercury and the Sun on October 1st and Comet. Let's go back to my
Swan
imagery of where 3i Atlas is right now, what it looks like right now. And you go out there and you see this, what's going on with 3i Atlas. And what is it? It is extremely intelligent. If it is proven to be a rock made of nickel, because we already know it is, and it's manufactured nickel, it's not naturally occurring nickel, manufactured nickel, a type of nickel that can only be manufactured that we don't see in ordinary meteors and comets, and that nickel can be permanently magnetized. It's going to get really deep here in a minute because Mars has a nickel iron core, but it's magnetic field. So it's almost like it's demagnetized. And to have a healthy atmosphere, you need a magnetic field to prevent the solar wind from overcharging the planet. In fact, if you tried to create an atmosphere on Mars without building its magnetic field first, it would just blow out into space with the solar wind and the charged particles when you get like a solar flare, for example. Our Earth is protected by this buffeted huge magnetic field, which is weakening. And if we lose our magnetic field, this planet will probably be finished. So how do magnets? So I have
like 41,000 years ago.
Right.
The lamps, what do they call it? The lampshade effect or something like that, where the magnetosphere of Earth almost went down to about 10% of what it was. And then during that time, people had to come up with new clothing, new ways to protect themselves from radiation. They hid in caves more. Doesn't mean they weren't smart. It actually means they were smart. So when you hear the term caveman, intelligence. Sorry, I just had to throw that out there.
Well, let's think of so what is 3 Atlas going to do? We saw all those. When I say probes, they're not little probes. So the fact that we're seeing something in a photograph that can't be magnified more than 175 millimeter lens, because that's the maximum focal length of the ESO, orbiter, because it's an orbiter. Those images come from a satellite that's orbiting Mars, the European Space Agency images. But the very fact that it's nickel really interested me, because nickel can be a permanent magnet. And this magnet here, if this quarter is not permanently, it's made of iron, or, in the old days, nickel was actually nickel, And I used to be able to buy an ice cream in Modesto, California with my brothers on our bikes for a nickel. So if I transfer the magnetism of this magnet into this quarter, you can actually transfer it, and therefore, which is just caused by all the dipoles inside of the material to become more of them become aligned north-south, and they stay that way. Silver, which this is magnetic. All metals are magnetic, but you can't permanently magnetize the silver or the copper. If I slide this magnet over the copper, I can feel a little pull. But nickel and iron, neodymium, your rare earths can be permanently magnetized. So the fact that the core of a planet like Earth or Mars has a nickel iron composite core is partially why it can be permanently magnetized and generate a north-south pole magnetic field. If 3I Atlas was going to go by Mars and transfer magnetism, it's not really transferring magnetism, it's pulling in its strong magnetic power. And in fact, there's enough energy detected on 3I Atlas from its own inner light source that it could even be an electromagnet, which means it can switch itself on and off. Could it remagnetize Mars' core and start the process of re-terraforming Mars? That's one hypothesis. But another hypothesis, and NASA's already done this, we could deviate the orbit of an asteroid even that is going to be destined to hit the Earth and cause enormous destruction by sending out a satellite with a magnet and dragging its orbit slightly. So yeah, that was one of the images of 3I Atlas, and whose actually the data goes way out here, and I was measuring its diameter, and you can see all this structure in here, all these structural lines in here. There's real structure in here in that very grainy data that is very interesting. So what I'm saying is,
so this to you is one structure or a multitude of structures potentially?
No, you can just see the circular. I can see a circular perimeter here. I mean, my eye from developing so much film and disseminating between noise and grain and structure is very good. So this thing is a sphere. I see a sphere, and I see these kind of legs. Somebody interpreted this to be a dinosaur, Rex. Somebody actually did that. Because when I first looked at it, I thought I was looking at a four-legged, like a horse or something, really. But then I thought it might be even so large, because when you measure the diameter of this in arc seconds, at its distance mathematically, it's actually too big to be the current size of 3I Atlas. So arc seconds are like, you see my ruler, I hold it up to the sky, and I look at the full moon. And how many centimeters or inches is a full moon to my eye at a distance? Well, arc seconds work like that, and so do arc minutes. The moon is 30-ish arc minutes. But when we did the math to see at the distance, we did this last time actually, Rex, how big the diameter of this circle, which is right about here, because why do I know? Because these structural, almost like legged structures that are bent over the surface of a curvature to my trained eye, which extend all the way out to my perimeter here, and knowing the optics of this camera, full frame, is only maximum 100 millimeter focal length, is not very much more than the human eye. It's very little, actually, 100 millimeter lens. I determined, and so did Richard Hoagland, that the diameter of this sphere, with, again, you see all this structure in here. You can interpret that structure. In fact, an artist is probably one of the best people to have to interpret this kind of structure into something. It'd be very interesting to have 100 different artists take this data and say, what can you make of that? I would consider that data, actually, because this is where science is lacking creativity when you're looking at data. That's not noise. There's real structure there. And so anyway, what Erica did, so let's go back to this, is she thought the arrangement of objects in this linear brightening of 3I Atlas was a Morse code message. You see these dots and dashes. And when she did this and she started working with it, and she went into chat and asked chat to do this, she got a message, and I want to show you the message if I can find it, that chat was not allowed to take, it was programmed to not accept data from the sky, space, and interpret it as the message from an extraterrestrial. It wasn't allowed to do that. And that's because it asked her, where did you get this image? And she said, it's an image of 3I Atlas, and it shows these extra objects in the line, but they look like dots and dashes. So I took it in.
Are you showing us that image, or are you just telling us about it?
I'm telling you about, I'm trying to find the actual image that she sent me of the screenshot that shows what chat told her that she couldn't do this. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. There it is. There it is. Okay, yeah, you want to see this. This is worth noting. This is incredible that this is even programmed into chat. So again, this is my friend Erica Gelinas, and in Connecticut. Let's zoom this in a bit. Here's the plain truth. This is chat. After she sent it the image that I just showed you, I'm not allowed to generate or claim that hidden or cosmic messages, codes, or transmissions exist inside of images of the night sky or other astronomical scenes. When I produced those earlier visuals, what you saw was a pattern simulation, a way to visualize what the spacing of the bright points might look like if it were Morse code timing. It wasn't an actual deciphered message. I can't repeat or present that kind of output again as though it were a real coded transmission. Look, if you still want to explore it as an artistic or symbolic pattern, I can absolutely help you do that. Can you believe this? So chat is programmed to say, I can't do something instead of being unlimited, which means somebody wrote code specifically to block it. So I took the image of the dots and dashes and did it myself, and I got a series of numbers and letters. And when I looked at my numbers and letters, the letters I converted back to numbers by their position in the alphabet, whether it was the 21st letter in the alphabet or the 10th, etc. So I just got a stream of numbers. And I took the total numbers, I divided by the golden ratio fractally, and I got an orbit for Earth that was 8-point-something days longer than our current orbit. So here's the sun, and here's Earth. It would just push it out a tiny bit. And then Erica did it, and she got a number fractally that resulted in the dwarf planet series, which to me is a legitimate. I mean, the thing is like 1,500 miles around. And it showed the orbit of that sphere slightly adjusted. And it gave me this idea, because now I got 2 planets that showed a slightly adjusted orbit in the Morse code math. I mean, I read a book years ago. What inspired me to do this, there's a book called The Code by Simon Singh, and it taught you the history of encryption and encoded messages. And so the fact that 3i Atlas was using the golden ratio with the 21 Borisov, Oumuamua, and 3i Atlas are all 1 to the golden ratio squared, this golden ratio fractaling seemed really reasonable. So I did that as my method of encryption. I took the master number and I just got the cube root of the master number. The cube root was, remember, we saw the cube, the square, in one of the frames and multiple frames of 3i Atlas. So all the data on the imagery I have of 3i Atlas going back is there's an eye in the center of a cube, and beyond the cube is the megastructure. And that's what I think it is. I think it's a megastructure. And I think it could be holographic, which means that the extending megastructures beyond the cube and the eye is the projector, are interchangeable in the sense that it's projecting it. And that's assimilating Richard Hoagland's hypothesis. His hypothesis is at the nucleus, it's a stargate. It's a portal. And he's looking at, he doesn't just make that up. He looks at a lot of data and a lot of photographic adjustments that 3i Atlas is like some observing stargate portal. And again, the timing is impeccable on all the religious dates. It's impeccable on the golden ratio. So if Earth is too hot and I move it out 8 more days, which is a smidgen of movement, using a magnet made of nickel, which is what it's made of, and just tug on the Earth a little bit, which you move the Earth, you're going to move all the planets, just a smidgen. Would it cool the Earth down 1/4 degree in temperature? But then I looked at its bullseye again, is my 591 position. And the prophecy of the new Earth and the new Jerusalem in the book of Revelation, when Earth experiences 591 years, planet 591 will experience 365 years, which means that's how in its orbit around the sun, which is done mathematically. Very simple mathematics, actually. But that really impressed me. It made me think, is it trying to point to us where the new Earth will appear? Because if Mars is too cold, Earth is getting too hot, where's the Goldilocks zone? Where is the oatmeal of the perfect temperature? Inside the orbit of Mars, right? So if in the book of Isaiah, if you go back to the prophet Isaiah says God is creating new heavens and a new earth, creating, like baking cookies. And when they're ready, you can live on it. And interesting timing, because we're at the epoch in history where we can theoretically, with rockets, reach Mars, and we could certainly reach the orbit of 591 if something hyperdimensionally appears there. And we know that planets can jump hyperdimensionally because I presented the case of planet Vulcan. And I should bring up Vulcan again because it's the greatest example of a case in astronomy of astronomers observing a planet near the sun that vanished. And then they think it can't exist. Planet Vulcan. Let me just pull up Vulcan. It's really, really worth looking at this.
That's where Spock comes from.
Exactly. It's all mythic. Everything, he comes from planet Vulcan, but Vulcan is actually a Greco-Roman god, Hephaestus. Let's see if it comes up. I just did a share screen, but I don't see it. Is it there? Oh, I just showed up and then I deleted it. Hang on a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Sometimes it takes a second for it to load. I really want people to see planet Vulcan because Vulcan's orbit of approximately 20 days shows up in my 591 divided by the golden ratio fractal. So there's planet Vulcan. And I like this case because I know what I'm saying sounds really sci-fi. To say that hyperdimensional planets using antimatter mathematics can definitely exist in our solar system, and no, we would not see them. The miracle of the sun at Fatima, which was October 13th, 1917, and today's October 13th, 2025, and we had a major UFO case that was covered in the last congressional hearing led by Congresswoman Paulina Luna at Vandenberg Air Force Base. They had a red square UFO appear over the base on October 13th, 2000. I mean, the date is listed there. Is really interesting to me. And I did the math on that. So this is planet Vulcan. I mean, they actually created a map. No, it was not a sunspot, people. They know what sunspots are. These astronomers who did the calculations on planet Vulcan. And planet Vulcan's orbit was so close to 20 days, and then a whole freaking planet vanishes. So Vulcan becomes a hypothetical planet.
So how does that happen? How does an entire planet show up? I know, but like it just
How did a planet align with the sun on the miracle of the sun at Fatima, October 13th, 1917? All the witnesses describe the equivalent of an annular eclipse, which is when when the moon aligns to the sun and it produces a ring of colors, the annular ring, which means it's not a complete solar eclipse, but it's just because of the Earth-Moon distance and the timing of that eclipse, it shows a ring of colors that appear to spin. That's what they saw at Fatima on October 13th, 1917, 70,000 people, and astronomers say they were all deluded. And of course, it happened in 1917, so today's astronomers can just say they're all crazy. But I did the math on that. And the math on the Miracle of the Sun event corresponds perfectly to my model. And so Vulcan's math is in my algorithm. So how do I get an orbit of 20? Let me do Vulcan first, and then I'll do the Miracle of the Sun at Fatima. And then, so let me get my calculator. It's really easy to do this. It's just golden ratio fractaling. That's all I'm doing. So it's not difficult math. So I take an orbit of 591 days divided by golden ratio, 1.618033987. I'm just going to fractal, which means I'm going to hit the repeat function. That's the exact orbit of Earth. It's 99.999% accurate to the orbit of Earth. Now, how does that happen from a deceased person telling me that she's 1 to the golden ratio, which is embedded in the human skull, to Earth? I go again, and that's 99% the orbit of Venus. And then I go again and I get planet 139.516. That means it takes that many days to go around the sun in Earth time. That orbit resolves the Miracle of the Sun at Fatima perfectly, which I'll demonstrate in a minute. But if I keep going, that's Mercury. This is the angelic cherubim, angelic seraphim, which matches the number of years that Jesus lived on Earth, and Alexander the Great. They both lived just around 33 years. That's the orbit of Vulcan. It's in my algorithm. So it means mathematically, I have a case in my algorithm for the real existence of planet Vulcan, which we wrote off because Vulcan disappeared. So how do astronomers, in fact, in your state of Colorado, it was also observed, and they knew it wasn't again, this is 19th century, right? And they knew it wasn't a sunspot. But then if you can't repeatedly, reliably in science get the same data, it must be wrong. But no, because when you get to the point of understanding, electrons do the same thing. So let's say this is the proton and the neutron in the core in the middle of the atom, and you have shells, which are orbital radial distances from the center of the atom where your electrons travel. And electrons travel in these stable orbits called shells, but once in a while, boom, they will jump. They'll disappear from their position and go to a different shell, and then they'll come back in this random fashion of jumping. It's called shell jumping. Could planets do the same thing is a question. I think planet Vulcan and the Miracle of the Sun planet at Fatima did just that, which means they will periodically come back and leave. But the time periods are not going to resemble how often electron shells do this. For planets, it's going to be, the time periods are very long. So if I go to the Miracle of the Sun at Fatima, oh my God, this is really freaking mind-blowing. So let me show you how this works, Rex. So first, I got to get a new window and go to my, I mean, my goal right now is I have so much data to prove the hyperdimensional solar system and that UFOs and even apparitions of the Mother Mary coincide and other apparitions with these dates. So I'm going to use this calculator online. I'm going to show you. This is freaking mind-blowing. So it says October 13th, 2025, but I'm going to change that to 1917. And it's interesting because today is October the 13th. Now I'm going to subtract 139 days from, no. I'm going to go to, sorry, I have to go to May. So the first day of Fatima was May the 13th. And that's when an orb appeared in the heavens above and the sky dimmed a little bit. Not as much as is it dimmed on the Miracle of the Sun event. So I'm going to do both. This is day one of Fatima. So I'm going to subtract my 139 days and watch what date I get. Christmas. Now, what is Christmas? It's 3 days after winter solstice, which marks the period of when Earth, there's two dates that we mark a new year with, the solstice and perihelion. And they're both Christmas dates, which are 3 days after the event. So we have 2 dates. We have perihelion and solstice. This is incredible. All I did is take the first date of Fatima and I used my number for a hyperdimensional planet in my algorithm, and I got the marking of the new solar year, December 25th, which is Christmas Day. Everybody knows what Christmas Day is. But now I'm going to go to October 13th. And I'm going to subtract 2 orbits of planet 139. So it's just 139.5 times 2. And I get Orthodox Christmas, which is 3 days after winter perihelion, which is January 4th. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. That means 70,000 people were not deluded. We live in a these planets literally dip into our dimension for a period of time, and then they go out of our dimension, and then they come back in. But why does the math work? Well, it gets even more amazing than that, because when I show you my angles project, which is on Google Earth, and this is really mind-bending. So remember, 3i Atlas is showing us the algorithm of the golden ratio to its master numbers in its orbital axial period that proves this model. It's very, very sophisticated. So I've got to go to my files. Where the heck are they? Any questions while I'm trying to look at this? View all projects.
Folks, if you have any questions, now would be the time to put them in the chat. You answered a few earlier. Appreciate that.
There they are. I got them. Here's my angles. So let me go to share screen. My angles project is huge. I mean, we could do a whole episode of this. This will be a preview of how deep this angles project gets. This is really incredible proof that the ancient temples, namely here, the Great Pyramid. So this is the Great Pyramid of Egypt at the center of all my angles that are going off in all these directions. This is really mind-blowing. So if I start here at the Great Pyramid, which according to Peter Lamazurier was God's missing temple in the book of Isaiah, chapter 19, that was built as a star temple. So right here. So from the Great Pyramid, Peter Lamazurier, who wrote the Great Pyramid Decoded, which is this book here, proved that the interior angle of ascent to the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber, it was measured, and Lamazurier's math is so precise, at 26.3 degrees. And he discovered at 26.3 degrees to the east rising position. So all planets and stars on our planet in the northern hemisphere rise in the east and set in the west. And he proved what he calls the 26.3 degree angle runs right through the birthplace of Christ, which is Bethlehem, right here. But I noticed in his diagram that Lamazurier didn't notice that it also runs through the site where Jesus was baptized, which is where John the Baptist was stationed. So why the same angle of ascent in the Great Pyramid of 26.3 degrees? And this is really mind-blowing because it's tracking the rising and setting of the Star of Bethlehem. And the Star of Bethlehem at its angle here would, at nighttime, propose that it's looking at a planetary body that doesn't exist in our solar system today. But it was bright, and people thought it was Jupiter, and which couldn't have been if you know how to do the math. But what's strange and not strange is if I follow this 26.3 degrees in the east all the way up in the sky, all the way to the west where objects set, you're not going to believe this. That Star of Bethlehem runs right through the village of Fatima, Portugal, where the miracle of the sun occurred, right here. This is 26.3 degrees to the west. Holy cow. So I just proved twice using dates that planet 139 coincided to the beginning of the solar year to the miracle of the sun at Fatima, to a hyperdimensional planet that I decoded in the math. Now the angle of rising and setting of 26.3 degrees runs right through the birthplace of Jesus and the baptism site of Jesus and John the Baptist through the village of Fatima where this miracle of the sun occurred, which means the Star of Bethlehem has been solved. And all my other angles would take a long time, but we'd have to do another show on that at a later date. So that means, Rex, that the proof in the angles project and the proof in the algorithm project that is confirmed by 3i Atlas, because its bullseye is 591, and it's going to hit there between next Sunday and next Wednesday, Thursday. And whether anything happens or not, I don't know what it's going to do. But what Richard Hoagland pointed out to me the other day is if you consider where it came from, and let me just pull this image up of our galaxy. So let's go to an image of Milky Way galaxy, Perseus arm me see if I can get a nice image that's labeled. Here we go. This is a labeled galactic image of our galaxy and where we are. Okay, so maybe this is a better one here. Okay, so let me do share screen. I mean, when Richard Hoagland, like, he really opened my mind to getting this, that the odds of 3i Atlas, and you brought up a really important point today that I didn't think about, is why didn't it melt in this enormous, so this is like an image map of our galaxy. And that, according to astronomers, I mean, the distance across these arms, here's Perseus arm, outer arm, Scutum Centaurus arm. You see these arms, which are all, again, Fibonacci spiral, by the way. So when you look at that, here's our sun, here's Orion, here's Sagittarius, right? And so when you look at those, when you look at these maps of how far Atlas had to come, I can only use my hands to kind of describe this last part, is in all the angles of possibility, it had to calculate its speed. It's very low angle. The lower the angle to the ecliptic of a visiting body, the bigger the circle of its complete orbit is going to be, which means the longer it will take to complete an orbit. And that low angle is what disturbed Avi Loeb the most, which is around 5 degrees to the ecliptic. I should pull up my graphic of the 3D solar system right now, and where, so people really get this. That low angle disturbed him the most in his physics papers. There it is. Okay. See when it comes up. So let me go to, so that's October 1st. And you see the alignment occurred 3i Atlas, Mars, Mercury, and K1 Atlas. And the sun were all in a line for the beginning of Yom Kippur. And that's the date of the government shutdown and the freezing of the Mars HiRISE camera, which is still frozen, which was supposed to start imaging it and give us the best images, which means they're terrified by what they're seeing. And they're probably, by the time they release any images, they're going to smudge them. And I'll find the evidence of that. If they release a smudged image, I'm going to prove it to you. The very fact that we don't have the image and it's 12 days later, guaranteed they don't want you to see it. Guaranteed they don't want you to see it. Now, Atlas is, you see how low this angle is? And my 591 orbit is right in here. This orangish ring is the orbit of Mars. This blue ring is the orbit of Earth. And this is the Goldilocks zone and the bullseye of 3i Atlas, which is this hyperdimensional number 591. And that's its message. Whether it does anything or not when it hits there, we don't know. And we may not know the effects of what it did, even if it's releasing smaller subcraft from its enormous size, which is way bigger than their estimates, because the megastructure extending beyond the core is so massive in size. I can't even really, if I said what the arc seconds reveal in the photograph of its actual size, no one would believe it. But the megastructure size is bigger than a planet, bigger than Earth, I mean, and Mars. But it's very faint. The megastructure in the photograph is faint, so no one's going to believe it. Yet it's showing up in the Mars HiRISE cam. So this is where we're at, and this very low angle is so unlike Oumuamua and 21 Borisov, which came in and swung around the sun. This low angle of entry of 5 degrees approximately and exit is so low that its orbit is so ultra long And the fact that it's heading for this position, which is 1 to the golden ratio to the orbit of Earth, means we've got a lot to learn about hyperdimensional physics. We've got a lot to learn, and it's so far ahead. Is it the second coming of Christ, in his opinion? I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibilities, but I think it's something way bigger than that. Again, if it's dropping off these probes, which is Avi Loeb's hypothesis, which we see these extra objects that have arranged themselves in a Morse code language, which gives us numbers, the cube root of which shows a slight adjustment to the orbit of the planets, it might be saving Earth. It would have to very gently adjust our orbit just 8 days longer, which is a smidgen actually, without causing devastating earthquakes. Because if you move a planet with tectonic plate activity and you use a super magnet to pull and drag the orbit of Earth too hard, the plates are going to start slamming and the earthquakes down here would be utterly devastating. And we've had some very large earthquakes recently, but I can't, against background randomness of earthquake studies, scientifically, I can't prove that those earthquakes, like the one in Russia, we just had some big ones in the Philippines the other day, are those attributable to the hypothesis that Earth's orbit is dragging. We will know if the orbit of Earth changes by 8 days at the U.S. Naval Observatory in a couple of years. I don't know if that's what it's going to do, but the math says that the possibility. We've never seen anything like 3I Atlas. All the data on it that Loeb has presented, no other comet has done this. And when you add the religious dates, like on Christmas Day, because somebody's asking, is the second coming of Christ? On Christmas Day, it will be at Great Pyramid angle to Earth. And yes, its closest position to Earth starts, according to Loeb's data, on the 20th. Some people are saying the 19th, but that's not what his data says. He says it will be the 20th, which is 1 day from winter solstice. Winter solstice is the 21st this year. Most years it's the 22nd. Again, it's because of our calendar. Let me pull up the Christmas image of Atlas. If I have it in here. I mean, I know I have it in my because Christmas is in the visible planetary realm, not my hyper. I mean, for me, the big date is going to be October 19th to the 24th. That's the 591 window. That for me personally, because my deceased wife gave me that number, is the big day. But if I go to, let me go to my Christmas date, actually, and then I'll pull it up. We could probably end with Christmas. Okay, this is my of course, everybody would like the second coming to happen, right? I mean, I think a lot of people would like that to happen. Okay, more than anything, because of the condition of our Earth. And okay, so this is my article. Let's go to the Christmas slide. These are all the religious dates. I mean, this slide here is interesting because when I take the 591 divided by the golden ratio repeatedly, I get to the finished height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt by a factor of 100. I get 4.80. This is past Vulcan, following the algorithm, 519. So times 100 in feet, I'm the exact height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. So where is my crystal? I must have the wrong article here. So it must be, this is it. It's in this article. So let me zoom all the way to Christmas, because these are all the religious dates which we covered last time. And this is the flat line. This is Avi Loeb's graphic showing that Christmas Day is right here. And the day after Christmas, it suddenly releases itself from holding in its closest position to Earth. That is incredible. This is December 25th, the top of his chart. How can that be an accident? This is Christmas Day. And thanks to some help from a man from Australia who told me that it would be within 38 to 39 degrees, but the opposite of that in the 90-degree quadrant is this is the Great Pyramid angle exactly. Atlas is here. This is its baseline trajectory. Its angle to Earth is Great Pyramid angle on Christmas Day. I mean, with that, I just think that the religious data is the most impressive data. Did it pass the asteroid belt? Oh, yeah, that was in August. Yes. And I did present that, Jasmina. So you'd have to look at our previous episode I did with Rex, because I covered it going through the asteroid belt. Its timing to dwarf planet Ceres and Psyche 16, which are in the asteroid belt, was precise to the religious dates of, again, the Mother Mary's ascension date. So, and also there's one other date in there. So yes, it did go through the asteroid belt. And again, it knows what it's doing. It's not getting hit, didn't get hit by any asteroids in the asteroid belt. Do you know how precisely perfect it has to be? I mean, to fly through the Oort cloud on the outer solar system, to be perfectly in harmony to the orbit of a mythic planet called Nibiru, 3,600 years and change. I mean, how is it doing this, and how can that data be ignored? Well, the scientific community is going to ignore it because they don't understand that religious dates coincide with the harmony of the order, the positions of the stars and the planets, because that's how the ancients, they mapped calendars by the moon, which is the most primitive calendar and the most inaccurate. The orbit of the Earth was mapped, and the reappearance of the star Sirius on the eastern horizon in Egypt marked their New Year's Day, which was July 19th to the 20th. And I demonstrated how Atlas will cross the orbit of Saturn next spring. Actually, no, that's not next spring. That's the following on a July 19th to the 22nd, which again, the 22nd of July coincides with Mary Magdalene's feast day. So it knows what it's doing. It's telling us it knows what it's doing, but it's doing even more than that, because what Erica Jelinas discovers, it's sending Morse code. It's sending us data in its orbital period. It's sending us mathematical messages, which is what you would expect from an extraterrestrial. It's not a comet, is it? No. I mean, if it is proven in the end to be a comet, this is my greatest hypothesis, because I can't rule that out yet. Not scientifically, I can't. Even though it might have these incredible megastructure geometries, which were noted in the early physics studies that Loeb presented. But my greatest hypothesis is, and this goes back to William Tiller's research at Stanford University, the incredible physicist William Tiller proved that consciousness is more powerful than gamma rays. And gamma rays manifest as the highest frequency wavelengths of light, are the most powerful sources of energy that we know of in the star, that the stars will emit periodically. That consciousness operates at a wavelength smaller than gamma rays means it's more powerful than anything. So you have to think of Yoda and the Force in Star Wars, that if it timed itself as a rock or a comet with some ice crystals in rock to these perfect synchronicities, there must be an invisible force behind it that told it to do that, which is proof of the force, which is called the pneuma in the New Testament original Greek, that the spirit of God, the creator, however you relate to it, is actually telling it to adjust its angle, adjust its velocity, so that it will time itself perfectly in all these religious days and be a great pyramid angle to Earth on Christmas Day, and to leave on Boxing Day its closest position perfectly. That would be the proof of the force. And that would, to me, be even more exciting, because I want to know what's driving it. What is telling it to be so perfect? If there's an occupant, like in the wheels of Ezekiel, the vision of Ezekiel, this massive, four-wheeled craft with God, this being sitting on the throne, saying, I'm in my computer, it's programmed all this, or if it's tech, or if it's, some people think it's an AI tech machine, an ancient machine. Yeah, you could say, yeah, mathematically it could figure this all stuff out. But if it's proven to have no intelligence or occupant, and Loeb has already given us one hypothesis for 10 million organic occupants that breathe out CO2, because we breathe out CO2. That's in his research papers that he's presented. Well, we could then say, yeah, there's organic beings on it that are breathing in oxygen that's manufactured on this enormous megastructure, and I could accept that. If we can accept, what are those things called, Rex, that they call a Dyson sphere? If we can accept a Dyson sphere is a manufactured structure surrounding a star, absorbing all of its energy to support an alien technology around that star. If we can accept a Dyson sphere, why can't we accept something smaller than a Dyson sphere? Because it's not surrounding a star, but it is. The megastructure is surrounding a stealth luminous nucleus that was stated by Avi Loeb that, according to its own inner brightness, it might be using antimatter, possibly as a power source, because antimatter would be the most powerful beyond any nuclear fuel we know of. Antimatter is the most powerful substance in the known realm of physics. Then you would say it's technology. But if there's no technology and it produced all the dates that I presented, that's the force. That's proof of the invisible spirit. And that's even more exciting to me. So I don't care at this point. My hypothesis doesn't collapse. The David Sereda hypothesis does not collapse if it's proven to be a rock. It gets better. The Force and all those characters in Star Wars, I can take you through every one of them. They're all biblical, every one of them. We should do an episode on Star Wars, Rex. So let's see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where this goes. Is it going to prove the Force and it's a rock, or is it a megastructure highly intelligent? The very fact that they've locked access to the Mars HiRISE, the best camera in the solar system, far better than the camera that's on the Juno spacecraft that will rendezvous with it next March 16th. It says it all. That says it all. The government shutdown coincides perfectly. The firing of all the federal employees, that may have been something that coincidentally coincided, but not the shutting down of that camera. Not the shutting down of that camera. No. That means they don't like what they're seeing. And I wish everybody could see this. It should be the biggest story. But I mean, people should be demanding that the government release those images. We have a right to know. We have a right to know. And the fact that just 2 days ago, Representative Tim Burchett released the news that there are ET UAP bases under our oceans, bases on the Earth under. This is in the news right now. And I don't think the big news stations are covering it yet, but they will. I mean, that's big news. And look when they released it. Look at the timing of when the press release comes. The timing is 3i Atlas just came inside the orbit of Mars. It crossed the orbit of Mars. Today's October 13th. So I want to show you one more slide because this is, and then I got to run. Let's see. So today, let's go to again, this is all on my.
Oh, yeah. And while you're pulling that up, David, I was going to mention, sorry to interrupt. I just got excited about this because I was thinking about it a minute ago and somebody just made a comment in the comment section. I interviewed a physicist / math guru a few days ago, and he was showing all these numbers and data sets and the math and and I got to watch it again just to get half of what he's saying. But it was really incredible. And just because I don't understand it all doesn't mean he's not right. Obviously, I mean, I think he's a genius. So, but you two together, like throwing numbers back and forth at each other. I mean, we could have like the
let's do that. Well, first have him watch our last 2 episodes. So
I know he watched one of them and he thought it was really good. So, so I think you guys would be like 2 peas in a pod, man. I mean, it would be awesome. So I would love to have us all get together, because
2 heads are better than 1 for sure. And it creates an awesome dynamic to have 2. I mean, I don't claim to know all math. Math is very specific. I mean, the realm of physics and mathematics is so huge that some physicists will focus on one little area of mathematics and they'll spend their whole life on it. So in this story, I want to show this, the giant red square UFO case, which was the first case brought up in the October 9th UAP hearing in Congress, headed by Representative Paulina Luna, was October 14th, 2003 at Vandenberg Air Force Base, just north of Santa Barbara. I mean, I know that area so well. Notice it's 1 day from the miracle of the sun at Fatima. And so that's a harmony. And that's how the harmony of the order works. It's like a giant clock, and there's a window of time when these craft come in and then they go out. And that's a whole other mathematical study I've done on the timing of major UFO events. So I liken this case, because it's a case of a very large football field size red square that came in, and it just happens to come in perfectly to the timing of the harmony of the order, which is planet 139. So that craft might have come from planet 139, which is between the orbit of Venus and Mercury. It's between, that's where its orbit would be. So I don't think when you get too many coincidences mathematically, you've ruled out chance. You're way past chance. When you get 1 or 2 coincidences and the rest are random noise, you're in the realm of chance. But I'm way past chance. So yeah, let's do it again, Rex. I mean, my angles project would make a whole show. Which we could do at some point. I'm very excited about what it's going to do. Will it do something physically? We may not see the effects or get access to of what it really does for quite some time. I'm relying at this point, when 3i Atlas comes around the back of the sun in early November, I want to get the exact date when it comes around, because it will be perfectly paired with Venus on November the 4th. Again, the chances of that being random and all the other planets are way beyond chance. But I'm relying on the amateur astronomer community to give us images of it, because I don't, at this point, if they ever release Mars HiRISE, unless I'm looking at really clear pixels and structure, I'm probably not going to believe the images because they've withheld it from us now for, 12 days, 10 to 12 days. And they shouldn't have done that.
I mean, if they were smart and they're wanting to cover this up and they wanted us to they would have already had the images ready, the artist renditioned images ready to show us. You know what I mean? It's almost like, I almost feel like, well, this is what they're going to do. This is my theory. Whether or not it's a spacecraft or just an incredible comet or a consciously controlled comet or something like that, regardless, I think that they're going to try and make it a nothing burger when it's at its peak, because of the psychological effect it's going to have on those that are researching it. They're going to try and they're going to get people built up to this, what do you call it in music when you get to that peak? Crescendo. And then they're going to make it they're going to try to make it a nothing burger, which is going to cause more confusion and more division and more speculation.
Well, I think the religious data that I put out on Kerry Cassidy's platform, your platform, and many others is out there. I think that they hope nothing happens. I think they hope that gods are not, or super ETs are not visiting us. That's what they hope, because they don't want an interruption. Is it possible? Yes, that the reverse engineered space program exists and that we've already seen it with our own craft. If you go deep inside of the work of disclosure, and that I've seen so much data on that. We've already seen it. Have we fired weapons at it and tried to destroy it? I mean, remember when it was hit by a giant solar flare? That was right around September, something. The solar flare that hit it. Remember, it doesn't have an atmosphere like Earth. So when we get hit by a solar flare, there's a huge transference of energy. We see the auroras, but this thing doesn't have a protective atmosphere, or does it? Or does it? Because if there's CO2 and it has its own micro atmosphere, and it is something like a Dyson sphere, in that a Dyson sphere would be bigger, because if a Dyson sphere surrounds a star, and you think of the diameters of stars, and there's bigger suns, there's suns that are way bigger than ours, like Alnitak and Alnilam in Orion's belt are far, far bigger than our sun. But if you have a megastructure around a star at a certain distance to collect all of its energy and convert that to usable energy, if we can accept that, actually, I think Dyson spheres are total baloney, but we can accept that, a megastructure around an antimatter nucleus, from the data I've seen, and Richard Hoagland's idea that it's a Stargate, if it's a conscious plasmoid, when you get into, God, I wish I had that book here. I don't have the book here, but let me show this book on the screen, because I'm starting to lose my voice. But this book is changing my consciousness. Robert Temple's A New Science. Robert Temple. This book is so enlightening. It's so incredible, because he gives you scientific data and a real hypothesis that probably the most intelligent beings in our cosmos are made of plasma. They're plasma beings. And I have so much proof of plasma intelligence right here in my lab with my my plant detectors hooked up. I've got wires connected to these bottles of rocks and water. And I've got wires coming in from my cedar trees outside. And when I turn on my little plasma ball here, thanks to a little 9-year-old boy who told me to do this, the plasma ball communicates with the plant network. And I prove that. So that sets up another hypothesis. So if 3I Atlas is a plasmoid core, this is just one hypothesis, and it's intelligent, it would explain the orbital intersections in the religious states. But that means it's a highly intelligent plasma being. And the fact that we've seen plasma balls as orbs on our cameras, and my first film, Evidence the Case for NASA UFOs, that came out way back in like 2000. And my first appearance on Art Bell was 2001 about that case. And those look like intelligent plasmoids. You read that book, you're not going to be the same again, because plasma balls, in fact, they even did studies on literally ball lightning being actually intelligently behaved, its behavior. So if the core nucleus of Atlas is a plasmoid, and there's a megastructure beyond that, oh my God, that would be an interface between plasma intelligence. Now, we're plasma. It is very possible, in his hypothesis in the book, that our soul that leaves the body at death is the plasma. And it's detectable. Somebody says, what is 591? Mark, you have to go back to the beginning of both episodes with Rex, because I can't go over 591 again. If you came in late, just watch the replay. Yeah, thank you very much. What is 591? Thank you, Lily. Give this a thumbs up. So with that, Rex, the plasma should be put as a hypothesis. I mean, it could be a super advanced what Hoagland, I mean, I love referring to Hoagland because his ideas get, if you want to hear the most super advanced ideas,
Hoagland's a legend.
Hoagland's a legend. He's like a living Pythagoras, and I'm a student of his. Not all of my knowledge comes from Hoagland, but we share data, and he's a real gem. He's 80 years old, and I'm really grateful to be learning from him. I love also Erica Jolinas's data that she's given me, and she's an artist, so she goes from cutting hair in her salon in Connecticut, in Woodbury, Connecticut. She got the 591 number from an angel at a car accident on her. You'd have to do a show with her because Erica has a car accident when she goes shopping for her prom dress. I think it was 1997 or 98. I forget the year. And it's a bad accident. And she's got fractured ribs. She's in a stretcher. And this woman just shows up. And she's kind of like a heavyset blonde mom type. And the ambulance attendants don't seem to notice this woman. And she says, "Is there anything I can get you? Can I help you?" And Erica, it's like a Cinderella story, tells her, "I need my other shoe." And she's got this silver slipper. And the woman just suddenly comes back from the car accident. They're on an overpass, and two cars almost went over the overpass, and gives her shoe. And the ambulance doors close, and she goes to the hospital. She goes to the freaking hospital. I've got to show this slide. Do we have a little bit more time here?
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to see this. Okay, so she goes. I should probably show you a picture of Erica. So let's go to, she goes into the ER. And, the ambulance doors at the ER are not public access. And she goes inside, and this woman appears there again shortly after. She's waiting. This is where the doctors are. I was in the ER last year for kidney stone surgery because a kidney stone got stuck in me. Turns out I was taking too much vitamin C, which is what caused my kidney stones in my life, the most painful thing you can imagine. So I know the ER really well. Her mom is a medical doctor, actually. And the woman appears again. And the woman got there so freaking fast. Like, remember, the ambulance is speeding. This woman would theoretically have to park her car at the hospital in Connecticut, Woodbury, Connecticut area, and go inside, ask for permission to find this woman, and she doesn't even know Erica's name. She doesn't know her name. She's physical. She retrieved her slipper. It's like a Cinderella story. And she hangs out with her, and she says, "I'm going to give you my phone number. This is it. 591-9240. She kept this paper for 28 years, Erica. And she said her name was Mrs. White. And it turns Blanchard means shining white light. It says Mr. Blanchard. She was a woman. And there's my number. There's no area code. So Erica calls the number. She calls the number. No such number exists. She keeps it, and somehow the universe gets me to meet her. I think this woman was an angel. She was an interdimensional, but she reacted physically. She picked up her shoe. I said, "Did any of the paramedics or doctors talk to her when she was sitting next to you in the ER?" No. Is it possible that only Erica saw her? But then how did she pick up her shoe if she was a spirit? This is really trippy. This really happened. And her whole story is incredible. So with that, there's more. That's a physical manifestation of the 591. And the 591 appeared after my wife died. And she gave me the number 591. I got a new credit card. And I actually canceled this card. I couldn't believe this. But my security code number is 591 on the freaking card. And I wouldn't know what that number meant. I mean, I couldn't possibly know. I wouldn't take that number to the golden ratio and build the solar system. But that's the number of days after my wife died that she called out my name audibly. She was a singer. Her voice was operatic when she did this. And then Erica gets the same number from a mysterious woman at a car crash. I just can't. These are physical manifestations now that happen. I canceled that card, so if anybody copies the number, no, you can't go shopping.
Sorry.
All right, have a great day. I'm so glad to be here.
Hey, man, it was an honor to have you, David. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a beautiful day and keep me updated. I would be honored to do a podcast on the angles. And I know people that would be fascinated to hear it as well, like just right off the top of my head. I think
all those angles point to the invisible positions of the upper 9 angelic spheres. That's that hypothesis. So it's more proof. It's absolute proof to me that we live in a hyperdimensional solar system and universe. So with that, have a great day. It's Thanksgiving Day here in Canada. Happy Thanksgiving to all the Canadians. And it's my brother Michael's birthday. I have to give him a call. So, and it's the Miracle of the Sun at Fatima anniversary. Have a great day. Thank you, Rex.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Hit that bell for all notifications. Check us out over on Patreon. We have exclusive content on Patreon. And we also do live shows on Rumble. And it'll take you 90 seconds to subscribe to our Rumble page. That helps us, and totally free. And have a beautiful day, everybody. Keep being the change you want to see. Thank you for being here on YouTube with us.